I remember that evening just like it was yesterday. It was Thursday evening, December 9th, 1965. I was listening to a radio station in Pittsburgh. There was a breaking news story coming on the radio about this brilliant fireball. This fire object was seen from the tip of Ontario, Canada, over Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And as the evening continued on, reports were coming in from a widespread area, people seeing this thing over the greater Pittsburgh area. Multitudes of eyewitnesses are seeing this brilliant fireball moving across the sky. And the radio stations, the TV stations, the newspapers, the police departments were jammed with reports. Whatever that object was, it apparently fell into a wooded ravine near the little village of Kecksburg in Westmoreland County.
Westmoreland County, located in southwestern Pennsylvania, has a rich history that prefigures the formation of the United States. Warfare, bloodshed, tragedy, triumph, and progress have all taken place in this region. Numerous sites such as Hannahstown and Fort Ligonier bear witness to this, keeping the stories alive for each succeeding generation. One of the more unusual parts of Westmoreland County history takes place in the unincorporated village of Kecksburg, a town named for a family which owned and operated their own beverage company. Stan Gordon has been one of the leading UFO researchers in Pennsylvania for the last 60 years, the catalyst being the events that took place in Kecksburg back in 1965.
Kecksburg, Pennsylvania is a small rural community in Mount Pleasant Township in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, approximately 40 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. And you can see the Chestnut Ridge at a high location clearly from all around the Kecksburg area. So you're not that far away, mileage-wise. And of course, while Kecksburg is the case that everybody knows about around this area, there's been a lot of history of all kinds of strange phenomena that's happened all around this area and through Mount Pleasant Township and throughout the community around here, going all the way over to the Chestnut Ridge area.
In the 1950s and 60s, flying saucers were a major feature in pop culture. No one was sure of the origins of such craft. Some were convinced they were piloted by visitors from other planets, but with the Cold War looming, thoughts of a more terrestrial explanation were not far from the public's mind. So, when reports of a fiery object crashing near Pittsburgh were reported, the public came in droves, hoping to get answers for themselves.
As reports of this object coming down in the Kecksburg area began to circulate on Pittsburgh area radio and TV, hundreds of people descended on the small rural community to try to get a look at the object down in the woods. By the time most of them got to the scene, the area was being cordoned off by the fire departments, the state police, and the military, and most did not get down anywhere near that site. They were up on the roads, and all they could see was some movement and lights in the woods. What a lot of people didn't know that night was that the object actually had fallen far on the opposite side of the woods down into the ravine that they were not able to see from there.
Well, that night we lived in Oakland Avenue in Greensburg, and me and the wife come out and we seen the orange streak in the sky. From our vantage point, it just looked like a jet or something crossing the skyline, and we seen the military down in the wooded area. The military was walking back and forth on the opposite hillside from what we were on. We were blocked off from coming down into that area. The firemen had it blocked off. We couldn't see very much what they were doing. We didn't talk to any soldiers, but I did see the military down in the hollow.
The night that the UFO crashed, we was outside playing football, and we didn't actually know about it until we walked back in the house, and Mom and Dad said that there was a thing on the radio that something crashed in Acme. My mom looked out the window and says, "That wasn't in Acme, it's right here behind the house." Then some military people came. They used our house as a command post, And they told my mom and dad to send us kids to bed. We could hear them talking. They really wasn't saying, you know, what was going on around us, but we started watching out the windows and stuff, and I seen people coming in and out. We seen some people coming down in a white suit carrying a big box. One had an NASA patch on his arm. There was people in black suits that came in. And those there people there, they was actually, seemed like they was in charge of everybody. They was telling people what was going to happen, and that's what happened. I see him go down in with an empty truck, come out with something on the back of it. After everything was said and done, and they went out of there, nothing was ever said. In fact, they even denied that they used our phone. They said we didn't even have one at the time.
And it got more exciting during the evening as reports were coming in that the military was now arriving in the Kecksburg area to search for an unidentified flying object. Back in those days, we had the old black and white TVs, so I'm running back and forth between the old black and white console and the radio trying to get the latest reports, and I stay up very late to listen to all the reports coming in. Even though there was a lot of good information, there was not a lot of detailed information on what was actually taking place. So what I found out was that some of the local residents who saw this object come down that afternoon, they went down into the wooded ravine to see what had fallen from the sky. And they came across this large metallic acorn-shaped object semi-buried in the ground. So this looks like a great big metallic acorn, kind of an off gold bronze color. But according to witnesses, this thing is maybe 10 to 12 feet or more in length, about 8 to 10 feet in diameter. It's one solid piece of metal. No rivet marks, no weld marks, no seams, no fuselage, no wings, no openings they can see. And on the raised up back of the object, like you'd have on the back of the acorn, witnesses said they saw raised up markings that looked more like symbols. And one witness in particular who was very close to it, from his memory, he spent some time in libraries and he was trying to find something similar. He said the closest he could find was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics.
That night, the mob of outsiders who came to see the crash left the town. But for the locals, mysterious things continued to happen.
Next day, me and my brother went down in the woods. We seen where they'd covered up a hole, a different kind of dirt, you know, and seen how the trees was broke off, and walked over to the other side of the hill when it was all burned off. There was some guy over there with a Geiger counter. At the time, we thought it was a treasure finder. We was kids, we didn't know any better. He told us that, asked us what we was doing down there. Told him, well, we live here, you know, we're down here all the time. He says, well, you know, there's a chance of radiation being down in here. You know, what the heck's radiation? You know, we didn't know. So we sort of ignored him and went along our way.
In the days following the crash, the Pittsburgh area was still abuzz with news about the events unfolding in the small village of Kecksburg. Newspaper reports varied, and word of mouth transmitted tales of crashed vehicles, military intervention and intimidation, and a large object being removed from the area. In other words, a cover-up.
So early the next morning, I went to the local newsstand to see if there was any of the stories about what was seen last night in the local papers, and there it was in all the local papers. The Pittsburgh Press, the Post-Gazette, the Greensburg Tribune Review had two editions, and the early morning edition had Army ropes off area, unidentified flying object falls near Kecksburg. And it went on to say that apparently something had fallen down into the ravine, that the area was cordoned off on the orders of the U.S. Army and the state police, that no one was being allowed anywhere near the object, and that they are awaiting the arrival of civilian scientists and Army engineers to examine whatever it was. So it was pretty fascinating. The later edition of the paper had several different stories, including one that caught my attention, which said, searchers failed to find object. And it went on to say that, yes, there was a search at early morning hours, but they found absolutely nothing, and that the official explanation was that it was people's imagination. They had seen a bright meteor in the sky, but nothing had fallen to the ground. And that's officially where the case remains today. I've interviewed hundreds of people now, and we found out there was a lot more to that story than was ever in the news at that time. Many of the locals who were involved in the incident, or people who had come out to the scene that night who saw different aspects of what was going on, After they saw the news the next day that nothing happened, they kept their mouth shut because they knew what they saw and it was completely different was in the news.
I worked with a guy, his name was Dean Campbell. He stated that he actually seen the flatbed truck coming down through town with the object on it. So he was on the main drag over here, which is now Kecksburg Road, and he seen the flatbed truck coming down through town.
We later learned from various sources that the object left this area on a large military flatbed tractor trailer with a tarp over it. It left there during the early morning of December 10th and went to Lockbourne Air Force Base near Columbus, Ohio, under very heavy guard. I was told they backed the truck and the object into a hangar. They set up a security perimeter around it and were given a shoot-to-kill order to anybody approach that hangar without the proper clearance. It stayed there for a short time, then continued on to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and where it's at today, we don't know.
Today, the events of that December night are still clearly recalled in the town of Kecksburg. The town has fully embraced its enigmatic past. It holds a yearly UFO festival. The main feature of the town is its UFO statue that looms over the village that functions as a constant reminder of what had happened. The road where the mysterious object fell was even renamed Meteor Road in remembrance of that night.
Well, most of the homeowners all denied. And I just believe, that somebody said something to them or threatened them in some way, that they kept quiet. Later on in the years, I noticed a couple of those people that was keeping quiet are now actually admit to it, and that something did happen, but they wouldn't say what.
Theories abound regarding what crashed in Kecksburg, from something beyond our world to lost Nazi technology. The most popular theory is that of extraterrestrial origin, even though this is notoriously difficult to prove. There are no clear answers on why the military would so earnestly search after this craft, or why they would keep its discovery and removal a secret to the present day.
I don't know. I don't think it's any little green men or anything like that, but I do believe it was either one of our probes or one of Russians or a foreign probe that they lost control of, and it just happened to come down in Kecksburg.
How big of an impact, if any, did that incident have on you, on your life?
On me, I'll always remember it. I was 10 years old, and you see all kind of military and stuff. That's exciting to a kid, You see all people coming in, and they're telling you it's a UFO, and you're actually watching this happen. I think there's still trees up there to this day that's broke, there's still damage to it and stuff, and I'll remember it all my life, it's something I'll never forget.